Testing. Oh, there we go. All right. All right, well, I'm a couple minutes late. I'm going to blame my table, and the eldest at the table were Van and Shirley Sindelar, so they're getting blamed for the late start if you're at home. Well, let's call this meeting to order. We've got about 40 minutes here that we can go through a few different topics. Before we begin and I explain the agenda, though, I'd like to call Zach Kaiser up here, and he's going to open us with a word of prayer.
Hope you enjoyed a nice time of fellowship and coffee and cake, and we're just glad to see you here today. Please join me in prayer. Father, thank you for the message that you gave to us through Pastor Erickson this morning. And we continue in that theme. We praise you. We adore you. You are good. You are loving. You are faithful. You have provided for us before, and we look to you to continue to provide for the things that we need. And Father, I quickly look to the letter in Ephesians that Paul wrote. He is informing them that they are members of your household, that in Jesus Christ, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in you, we too are being built together to become a dwelling place in which you live by your Spirit. And so we thank you for this building, for this church family. We are part of your household. And as we look to the year ahead, please guide our steps. Please make our paths straight in you. And let us just humble ourselves and to be good listeners of what you have for us. Thank you for who you are and for what you do. Amen.
All right, we'll start this with just a little explanation of the agenda. I can already tell you I need my reading glasses. Can you grab them, my Bible, hon? I was here for worship a little bit ago. I'm the plug-in sound guy. I'm the last resort generally. So it's usually like on July 4th, Memorial Day when people are gone, that sort of thing. And Megan was walking around beforehand and like singing and testing the sound because she knew she couldn't trust her husband necessarily. And it was awesome just seeing her like over there, but the sound coming up, and she's just walking around and listening to herself. I don't think it would have quite the same appeal if I walked around and did the budget meeting from everywhere in the room. So I'll stay right here, but it made me think of that. So the agenda today will be mainly focused on the budget and where we are financially. If you didn't grab it yet, there's a paper copy of it out in the foyer. You can also find it on valleyfree.org, I believe, /info. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about those that are currently on the elder board and those candidates that are on their first ballot today. And that should be on a sheet of paper that's in front of you. If you haven't grabbed a ballot yet, Dan Kep, you could raise your hand and he'll get you a ballot back there. So we'll talk about the elder board and the voting process for that. Then we'll go through the budget. Then there'll be a question and answer time. And then we'll turn in our budget, or then we'll turn in the voting sheets. And then we'll have a couple updates just on some more like town hall meeting type stuff. And then we'll adjourn. And we have to be done before Sunday school ends. So we have that cap. All right, let's talk a little bit about elder board confirmations here first. So John and I are both up for reconfirming us as elders. John and I, this will be for our 8th year on the board. So we're pretty veterans at this point on the elder board anyway. So, and then Zach Kaiser, this is his 4th year. And then I viewed Taylor as, there's a point in your life when you stop like saying you're 5.5 years old or 7.5 years old. I'm going to give him his half because he was voted in January. So this is for his 2.5 year of eldership. And then we have 2 new candidates today. I think about a month ago, we introduced you to them as candidates. That's Alan Kreider and Eddie Phibbs. They've both given their testimonies here at church. We, as an elder board, have gone through a pretty lengthy process with them, starting when we asked them in the fall to join us at our elder meetings and elder Bible studies that we do. And it has been an absolute pleasure to have them as part of our team as far as in presence, and we fully recommend them to be a part of our elder team on paper as well too. They certainly, they're not perfect, but as far as the 1 Timothy 3 elder qualifications, it is our recommendation that they meet the qualifications and the needs of the church, the big church that God has laid for us. So we give them our full support, and they'll be on the ballot as well today. So those are the elder candidates. There are 6 of them. Just a reminder, Pastor Mike is also, as a senior pastor, he's also an elder. So we will have the fullest elder board we've had in a long time. I don't know that we could say that. I can't think of a time when it was more than that would be if everyone's voted in. You've had a time of questioning for that, so that's partly why we introduced there earlier, is so that you could speak to any possible concerns you could have about anybody, not just the newcomers, but anybody that's currently on the board. So hopefully you had a chance to think about that, and then today we'll vote. Okay, let's get into the budget. If you have the sheet in front of you, there's 3 sheets that Les has put together. Les isn't here today, so I don't have him to turn to if I get stuck. But my main objective today, in explaining this anyway, it's similar to as any teacher, is just to make it so you don't walk out of here not knowing what's going on. So I hope that I can keep it simple enough that everybody in here understands where we are at financially and what we're looking forward to with our budget in the coming year. And please ask questions if there are any. I haven't mentioned that this is being live broadcast at home. If you have any questions at home, like I had mentioned before, you can access what I'm going to be speaking through on the website. You can also type any questions you have into the YouTube chat comments. Just know that anybody can see it that's online. We have Taylor's going to be keeping tabs on that. So if you have any questions throughout, you feel free to type them in there. Okay, there's 3 pages in front of you. The first one, at least the way I'm looking at it, with the budget actual, the last year's budget, and then the actuals from last year, and then the budget for the coming year proposal, that's going to be the main sheet that we work off of today. That has the wrong title on it. That would be like the budget sheet or the proposed budget. So keep that one on hand. I'm not going to be starting there. But on the inside then you have that's where the consolidated statement of activities is and the balance sheet. I'm going to be living kind of at the beginning with that, and then we'll focus primarily on the budget once we get through that. So that's kind of the order I'm going to go in. So let's start with the consolidated statement of activities. And again, there's 2 that are titled that. That's on the inside page that you might see. It has multiple columns. I just want to point out a couple things on that. And actually, I think I will pause. If there's a specific question on something or the why on something there, I'll allow for time on that once I get through it. So a couple things I want to point out on this is you're going to notice here, and I'm going to talk about it later, is the general fund offering. And that was an excellent year for Valley in that very first line item. I'll talk to more of the praise of that in a little bit, but kind of not last year at this time, we had a Zoom meeting for our budget meeting, and we actually had layered 3 tiers of a budget, not knowing what our income would be. So we had our A budget, our main one, with the assumption that giving would continue, hopefully as it has we've been very consistent over the years. We were hoping that trend would continue, but we didn't know how COVID would affect our members. And we are very pleased to say that we certainly hit our A budget and actually went above and beyond as far as the giving goes for that. So it was an excellent year of giving. You might notice, I want to mention this, that CR offering is in there. That kind of goes unnoticed unless you see it here. CR has been able to self-fund itself. We have it in our budget to just in case it didn't fund anything, we would want to keep that going, the integral part that it is for our church now. But it has self-funded itself, which is awesome. So thank you for those that have been giving to that. Another thing in there, the mortgage reduction. We did do that this past year, and that helped get the mortgage off, which of course we'll talk about later on. But that was a little helpful thing with that. And the John Just missions, I don't know if David and Cindy are here. That has just continued to be just a great mission for Valley that people have continued to fund, and just excited to always see that. And Cindy, I didn't go back and check the history of that, but it seems like it's growing even. Is that right to say that? So that is a wonderful praise too. The worship designated giving, just a quick on that. Someone in the church gave that money for these lights, so that's a praise for them too. That helps if you're at home and watching. You can see, it's much more easy to see, and it's not just for that. I don't know anything about lights, but I've actually noticed it's kind of like at home when my wife tells me we should do something in the house, and I think, why would we do that? And then I see it, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. It's the same thing here. The lighting very much does help too in the service, and there's more to come with that from people that know much more about lighting than me. So those are a lot of praises going on in the giving. The expense area I'm going to touch on later, so we're just going to leave that be for now. But you can see below that, that's what has been spent this year on our expenses. Okay, let's move over to the balance sheet. That's where we are as a church in different accounts and balances, assets, liabilities. Most of those things I'm not going to confuse you with, so I'll just touch on a couple of important ones, some highlights. The very first one is another, just like the giving on the other page, the very first one's very much a praise. The unrestricted cash right now is at a very high level, so about $163,000. So just to help lay out what that means, restricted cash is when money is given towards a specific item, like the John Just. That money needs to go towards that, exactly, whatever it's designated for. This unrestricted cash is money that comes in through the general fund or the general offering that can be used for really any purpose that the church deems necessary. And right now we have a bigger surplus than we need. It's about a third of our overall budget, which is, if you know finance world at all, in this case in a church, it's a really great mark to be at. It doesn't need to be that high, but we can keep it at a very high mark for going through the summer months, etc., where giving might be a little bit less. So we have extra funds there, which again I'll talk about in a little bit. But I think one of the things I want to address there is, as you all know, there's a lot of building needs, and that's going to be a big thing in this year. The 2021 year is a campaign that's coming up in the fall, and we have excess funds there and in another spot on this sheet that I'll point out in a second. And that's where they could be used for, which is a great spot to be in. The restricted cash, I'm not going to point out necessarily, but that $46,000 you can look over on the right side, and you can see that number where it says total restricted fund balances. We have some different fund balances that can be used for designated purposes, like the Light on the Hill Sign Fund. That money that we have there can only be used for the Light on the Hill Sign Fund, etc. So you can kind of see what we have there. The big one there is the Building Contingency Fund, which in the last 7 years that I've been on the board, we haven't dipped into, and it's kind of slowly gained some momentum into a pretty good account now. And now that we have a fair amount of building needs, that's another area where we might be able to pull from, or that we can pull from with our upcoming campaign. So we're at a pretty good starting spot already for what's ahead. I think that's all I need to mention on that page. I think I'll take a time for questions. I didn't for the last little page. On either of those first two sheets, does anyone have any questions right off the bat? If you have more like budget questions, just hold off on that, because I'll talk about that. Just more of a, if you need explanation on a certain line. Yes, Mel. Really good question, and that's something I was going to address later. So that's the current process. So after talking with Kurt Anderson, who's not here today, and I was just catching up with Dan too, right now we've had 3 different people come in for the windows. We've had estimates on that. Our siding will be done at the same time, different roofing things. We don't know what we're going to see behind the windows and the siding when that comes in. So I know that you could say, well, if the windows are our excess funds maybe is $70,000 that we could pull from the unrestricted cash. Why not do the windows just with that right now, or get something off the plate? Well, it all really needs to be done together because, I mean, it's cheaper, it's more effective, it makes more sense just to do it all together. So, and it kind of just needs to be done together. You wouldn't do the window if you're going to do the siding anyways. So it's kind of doing it all at once, and all of that is coming in right now. It's in the process. Dan, you got something to add? Just for anyone at home that was listening, Dan, by the way, is the team leader for the campaign. So if you have questions, you can ask him. But he was just mentioning how the things that we know are going to be on the campaign, like the ones I just mentioned, window, siding, repairs behind the siding, that sort of thing, paint, etc. All of those things are going to be north of probably $250,000. So the chunk we have without the campaign wouldn't be enough to cover it anyway, or a big enough portion of it right now. I'll mention this now too. One of the things Dan's working on right now is he's going to be going to different team leaders to see what other areas in the building are needing for updates. You know, the building's 30 years old now. Mortgage is paid off, which is awesome, but 30 years brings other things that need to be updated or repaired, that sort of thing. So he's working on that right now too. Any other questions, Martha?
Since the mortgage is paid off, does that monthly money go into a fund, or is it just kind of put into a general fund or something?
You are getting at the next sheet. So that's a great leadway into going back to that first sheet, which is our proposed budget for the year. And Martha's question was about where is the money going now, and that's going to be addressed on this sheet, or proposed to go now. Okay, so the first column, just to highlight that, you can see what last year's budget was, the 2021 fiscal year, which runs from April 1st to March 31st. From 20 to 21. Then you have what was actually spent in each category, or actually brought in the general fund, income and expenses. And then you have what we're proposing for our budget in the bold on that right side. So I'm planning on walking this down kind of line by line in a sense, highlighting the areas that have more than just a slight change to them. So going back to our general fund income, we have been very consistent on giving as a church. We consistently are in that $450,000 range for giving. Some years a little lower, some years a little bit higher than that. And this year was the first year in the last 7 years that we've not only brought in more than we've spent, which that happens fairly frequently because we often spend less than our budget, but we also brought in more than we budgeted this year, which is very much a praise. Our budget for this past year was $482,000. And our actual income that we brought in was $488,000. So that's just a great thing to be in the plus on that. Our expenses were very low this year. A lot of it has to do with COVID. As you can see, you can find that number at the bottom of the actuals, and you can see that our difference there is that $56,000. That's the difference from what we brought in from what we spent. So that's why we have so much unrestricted cash right now. Now, that unrestricted cash actually was at a lower point. We started the year with a fairly high amount in the bank account, and then there was some kind of lean months once COVID hit, and then when November and December came around, our end-of-the-year giving was extremely high, and that really helped us get us above, and then it's been pretty consistent surrounding those months overall. So that's where our income is at. Payroll expenses, as you can see, those are pretty straightforward. We pretty much budgeted everyone there with just a slight increase in pay. There's details in the weeds on that. As you guys know, and we announced, Megan will be stepping down as a worship director in July, but we're not getting rid of a worship director, so that's still going to be a position at Valley. So everything else is pretty straightforward with payroll. Staff ministry, like that one's way less, as you can see, but that's a result of COVID. A lot of that, ministry within the staff. So we budgeted $7,000, we spent about $4,000. That's an area where it's just, as you guys know, getting out and about, different ministries like that just haven't needed the funds, nor were able to spend the funds. So that's why there's some dips in some of those areas. But we're still planning on life back to normal. Oh, wouldn't that be great if we're back in here without masks by the fall or whatever, by tomorrow would be the best case scenario. But of course, that's up ahead. Hopefully life can get back to normal. Let's skip down to mortgage principal and interest. So Martha's question, just to repeat it, was we had a mortgage and now we don't. Where is that money going? So I'm going to bring you back to last year. So the mortgage is more than $38,000. It has been for the years. It was more around the $60,000 number. And we had budgeted $515,000. That was last year. And that was more than we were bringing in. So we were going to have to cut from some areas to get down to a level of where our income was at. And because the mortgage was pretty much cut in half, not quite that, but that was essentially where we landed last year with COVID and not knowing what we were going to bring in. That piece of the mortgage didn't have a designated place. This piece, the $38,000 that we still had for this year on the mortgage, that has been shifted towards other areas. And it's really been two spots and two places that we've really felt led as an elder board. One of them is missions. So we've always prided ourselves as being a mission-oriented church. I think that's just one of our strengths here. It's one of our values here is mission. And after quite a bit of discussion on what to do with that and feedback, we've really felt called to increase our mission giving per year. So in the past, it was at 17%. So $85,000 we had towards missions out of our overall budget, which was close to $500,000. And that's 17%. We wanted to get above that 20% threshold, which, and I've talked with a couple different people that deal a lot with church finances, it's not unheard of, but it's certainly not normal at all for a church to give above 20% of their income to missions. And at least we're proud as an elder board to be able to propose a budget to you that does do that. And we'll get down to the mission line here in a little bit. So it's kind of been split into half, part of it into missions. And we actually received a request from the mission team requesting for more towards missions. They've got some ideas that they're kind of wrestling with and working through right now. We also, as a church on an elder board, have questioned, like, what can we do in this past year? As you guys know, the year that's been at hand. And we've been looking for areas to serve financially in that area. And I think some of those things are coming too. So that's partly why we're focusing on missions. The other half, or the other portion, is going to the building. So I'm actually just going to skip down to that line. You can see the building contingency fund at the bottom. It's essentially going to a restricted cash fund that can only be used for the building. And we know that there's needs for the building, so we need to, we got to take care of our house in a sense. And we're very on board with doing that this year. That's a high area of focus for us. So in a lot of ways, it makes a lot of sense for the money that was going to the mortgage and to the building continues to be used for the mortgage and the building. So that's where that money is proposed to be going, Martha, for it. Most of the other line items are very similar to what they've been on other years. Evangelism outreach is something that we didn't dip into at all. You can see that there wasn't any money spent towards that. I remember back in June, Martha, you can correct me on this, we had and Mary Lou, we had an end of the year party, correct? Kind of planned to bring the community together. So that's kind of, we're looking for local community things like the chemistry show, things like that. That's where that is events, essentially. And this was a horrible year for events, so there was nothing with that. CR, you can see that they've actually built up their own fund now, so they have their own accounts that has some money in it. So they also didn't need anything from the actual general fund budget. So that's how they were able to self-fund themselves. That's kind of it as far as I think the things I need to talk to for the actuals. Even like the missions expenses, you can see was lower. Part of that is because we have mission money that comes in from another church that we don't want to count on, so we budget above that a little bit. But we want to plan for if that doesn't come in. Sometimes restricted funds come in. There was less travel. Like we have money built in for communicating with our missions and either bringing them to us or going to them. And there was a little bit less spent in that area. So that fell a little lower. We didn't want to lower that. Oh, yeah, I can't skip over this. So I jumped down to that building contingency. One of the biggest things is right there in the 9,000 line. So we have global, regional, and local missions. We've added 2 categories this year, which is the regional missions and the local missions. We didn't want to put them all together. We thought about just lumping all 3 and saying 105,000 for missions. But we really want to be specific that we're focusing in on 3 different areas. And with that's probably going to come it is going to require some restructuring of mission team to really focus in on all 3. So we have our local mission, surrounding area here, our regional mission, which extends into, we've focused more on like the downtown area, but think broader neighborhood than just Chaska area. And then our global mission, which has been, we've very heavily supported global missions over the years. We'd like to get more involved with regional and local missions. I don't want to talk too smart about it because I would refer to Taylor if you want to talk to an elder that knows more about it, kind of where we're going. But right now we don't have the local missions, we have some designated places that's going to go right now. For now, the regional missions is sitting at 12,000 with our thought that it's 1,000 a month. That we have some leads on what we'd like to support. We just don't have anything exactly right in place yet. But we feel it's very important to support our regional missions, and that's why we have that there as a placeholder. And we're planning on using that this year. We just don't have a specific area yet. We have some things in the works. Taylor, I'm going to ask you actually quick, is there anything else I should add to that for clarification? Do you have a mic back there?
Yes, I do. Oh. Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can, okay. No, I think you said it well. We really did want to, especially at this early stage, at the outset of this, we wanted to, even though we don't have anything solidified, anything in concrete yet, we wanted to separate it out to show that this is something that we want to. We don't want this to just kind of get lumped into a big, large pot and get consumed through there. So, no, we don't have anything concrete. I've received several emails from several of you, and I'm working with, reach out to a couple of other churches as well, just to kind of figure out what they're doing and how we can be involved. So, yeah, if you want to get more involved, if you have certain things that you want to emphasize, I encourage you to shoot me an email or give me a call or something like that. But no, I think you said it well, Pete.
All right, and then the last thing is that big number in the bottom right. So our proposed budget is for $490,000, which falls pretty in line with numbers we've had over the years. It's a slight increase on last year. It matches our giving from this last year, so it's nothing crazy, and that's kind of where we fell as an elder board on this year's budget. Okay, question and answer. Now you can ask anything. Fire away. Is there anything back on the feed, by the way? Nothing yet?
There isn't anything on the comments, but just for those of you watching at home, the comments are coming from the chat section and not the comments section. I can't say anything more about that because I don't really know it, but if you have questions, go to the chat section of the YouTube video.
It's a little easier at times like this when we don't, it's giving went well and we don't have any major areas of taking away. Mary Lou, yeah?
Just thank you for the slight increase in the seed budget. We're offering Vacation Bible School for free this year to our community, so that money will be well spent.
So a quick story on that. So Mary Lou, if you look at children's ministry, is $4,060 last year. I think in the words where you were just hoping to have it rounded up to make it clean to like 4,100. I can't lie, that I don't like 40-60 there either. I like nice, easy numbers to see. John, never mind. Somebody in our elder board was, why don't we do it as 46 or 4101? Add $1 to it, really throw it off. And then we decided, you know what? Oh, Mary Lou is such a blessing to our church. She does so much. She gets to her, she very much analyzes her budget. She takes it very seriously. And there is not a dime wasted within her budget. We're like, let's move up her budget. I mean, there's no reason not to. Every dime is worth it. So that's why, Mary Lou, we moved you up a little bit on that. So.
I forget what my total is now. I always have trouble remembering 40 what?
Yeah. Tom?
Yeah, just going to the building maintenance of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly excited about that because as you walk in the front door every Sunday morning, you're reminded by the healing pain.
Don't remind me again, Tom.
I know we're waiting for numbers, but do we have a target date? Is it this fall?
For the work to begin or for the campaign to start?
The capital
The capital campaign, well, I'm going to just let Dan actually speak to that. The question from Tom, if you're at home, was what dates do we have in mind for the capital campaign to begin and when the work could begin?
Yeah, can you hear me or not? Okay, good, all right. Good question. And part of our struggle is a little bit with Mike's sabbatical. We don't want to start till Mike's back. So that's the short answer for us to technically start the campaign. As Pete just shared, we're learning more and more every day. So as we talk about the budget, there's funds there that's in the unrestricted category that we are looking at possibly utilizing to kickstart it. So, but that's not traditional campaign. Traditional campaign is we figure out our ask and our need and we present that to the congregation. So to be honest, we're being untraditional right now. So the short answer is official start as far as overarching communication to the congregation will come after Mike gets back. But we're investigating what can we do now early within unrestricted funds based off of the quotations we're getting on the immediate needs. So does that help, Tom?
Only kind of.
Yeah, understood. Only kind of is fair. I agree.
I'll be really blunt. If we can't do something this fall as far as capital campaign, can I get 3 volunteers to help me paint the front?
You might want to scrape first, but
Yeah.
And I know it's not just a Band-Aid, but can we just Band-Aid the front of the picture? That's all I'm asking.
I,
Okay. Well, we are definitely going to be looking for volunteers as to put in some sweat equity in here too. So I'll sign you up for painting, Tom. How about that? Okay.
Karen, do you have a question? Mm-hmm. Again, I don't have a great answer for you, and I think Dan and I think his team would probably have a better answer too with that. I think a lot depends on the price of things that come in, and there's a lot of variables I think to that question. But will we be looking to volunteers? Yes. Do we know that the building is becoming a major eyesore? No doubt. You can't walk in the building without seeing it. So yeah, it's not like the elder board is oblivious to what's going on. And I know it seems like it's been a long time. It's just a variety of factors that have kind of played into it. And I know that's not a great answer to it, and we wish it was done. But we're working on it. It's on the forefront of everything we're doing. Arnie, you got a question?
Are you planning to self-direct a fund drive campaign, or you bring in consultants to direct that program?
Another great question. We brought in consultants twice, actually, just to kind of walk us through what it could look like. We did it last year. A couple different times we had people come in, and it was determined that because of the size of our project and kind of what we were looking for, it's something that, and the price of hiring it out to somebody, and the resources we have here at Valley too to do that, we determined that we're going to do it in-house, the campaign. So, but we've certainly looked into that through CIF. Yes, Laura. So that's another great question. So that's part of what's taking, so there's so many questions. The aesthetic, the design pieces of putting this all together. And that's another thing that's kind of in the works right now. I was just on an email with Kurt, kind of talking about that. He's not here today to address that, but that's one of the things they're working through right now is figuring out what sort of design to go with windows, or like what kind of siding do we want? How long do we want it to prolong? There's just so many long-term decisions. We want this to be to set our course for not just the next 5 years, or like what a quick fix might be, kind of what Tom was referring to. We want this to set us up for the next 30 years. Maybe not quite that long. But yeah. Yes, Pat. Right, and again, it kind of falls down to, it's weighing all the variables and price and what's best for this building. I very much agree with you, Pat. You know, we don't want something that's going to deteriorate, and if we don't have people to fix it, then is it worth doing a route that we're going to have to redo again? And those are all questions that are being weighed right now by the people that are working through this, the team. And all these questions are great questions and things that Dan wants to hear. So again, encourage you to talk to him. I know that people have been, but it's, you know, we're a congregationally led church, so we want and we hope for observations from all of you, questions from all of you. We assume if you're sitting silent on things that you don't have them, which I know is often not the case. So please speak up to us if you have questions. Jamie, and then we'll go Arnie. Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that I would just encourage our congregation is that, as you know, with the pandemic, the supply chain is just nuts right now. We've experienced that in building our house and some of you as well. So there is a good process to go through in terms of setting the stage for what the cost is going to be. But we're going to have to be patient on the supply chain because we may want a specific siding. It may not be available for a few more months. And so we'd love to do some of that sooner than later. Just as a congregation, I think just be aware of that.
And to be honest with you, if COVID hadn't have hit, our campaign would have already been done. We would have already done the work. It was partly we didn't know how the campaign or how COVID would affect finances. We weren't able to get the quotes we needed because of like what Jamie was speaking to, the supply. Man, you guys have been to Home Depot lately, right? To see what a 2x4 costs right now, like it's just hard to get stuff, and it's so high partly because it's been so hard to get supplies needed for a massive project like this, and just to get the people to do them. So there's a lot of variables, and unfortunately it's not done yet, but it is right. I mean, it's first thing on our list. Arnie, sorry, thank you.
Curious about the 7100 and with the lottery. I don't remember past budgets. I don't know what number might have been there before, or specifically.
Which page are you on? Did you say 71? Oh, you're talking the line item. Yes, the 4,000. So that one was a new item. Three years ago it was a new item. Yes. Yep. So out of that category, it was $6,000 for 2 years because Mike and Caleb and Martha was our lead, if I remember right on that. They were part of a evangelism cohort, and that was kind of a vision we had as a church, was becoming more evangelistic in some areas and to put a high focus area on that. So for 2 years, they were part of a program. That was $2,000 for that program to be a part of it. And they went to meetings with that, and they implemented it a lot into things that we were doing at church. And then we kept $4,000 in there. That was the additional $4,000 for events in areas that we can evangelize and be an outreach in our community. Other questions? Yes, Amy. Thank you, Amy. Actually, I'll say a couple more things, but while we're doing that, why don't we collect the ballots here so we can give those. Jamie and Dan are going to come around and collect those. So Amy made me think of Kurt. Kurt's doing a lot for the church. A lot of that goes unnoticed. You know, the elders oftentimes we're up in front. We're maybe a little more visible on things that we're doing. Kurt, as you know, a few years back, we got our deacon team we kind of reconfigured how that looks, and Kurt's taken a lot of the responsibilities. He manages the building essentially, and is doing a lot with the campaign and a lot of this running around type stuff. There's a list I told him I'd mention today. There's a list that you guys maybe know of. Hopefully you do. We've announced it a while ago now. We haven't talked about it for a while. But if you see anything in the building that needs to be done, there's a list in the workroom that you can just add anything that needs to be done, and then he checks it off or finds people to check it off. And he ends up doing a lot of that stuff himself, sometimes just because it's easier for him to just take care of it. But a lot falls on Kurt. So if you get a chance, when you see him in the next few weeks, I would thank him for his service, because he does a lot for us. While they're counting back there, a couple other brief things to catch you up on. Worship director position, we are in the works on the next steps to take. Nothing's set in stone at all, but we had just had an elder meeting on Thursday, and that was one of our bigger topics that evening to talk about. So things are moving forward with finding an interim replacement for Megan, and then looking to hire a replacement sometime after Mike's back, probably in the fall for that. Mike's sabbatical, from all I've heard, it's going well so far. I haven't actually spoke to Mike myself yet, but just through secondhand type information, it seems like things are going well. He's got quite a bit of traveling in. He's been able to stay away from Valley, and he's been able to stay away from me the whole time. I had one thing that came up that I thought about calling. I called Kelly Johnson, who's helping Mike and helped me kind of plan Mike's sabbatical. And he, after talking it through with him, and his advice too is just, if at all possible, don't contact him. We don't want to set him back with his time away to rest, recuperate, rejuvenate, and have a true Sabbath sabbatical. So yeah, we've stayed away from Mike so far, which is great. Any other questions on either items? It can be budget or anything else related. Wonderings? Yes, Cindy. When Mike will be back? His first Sunday back is July 11. His first day back is June 29 or 28. He'll be in the office for a couple weeks, just kind of catching up on things. He won't be preaching on July 4th, but he'll be here or be around. And then on July 11, I don't want to say a specific thing, but on July 11, I'm guessing, Martha, you're going to be the one I haven't reached out to you yet on this, but I've mentioned something passing. Maybe doing something as a church as Mike comes back. I don't know what day would make the most sense. Maybe it's before that. But sometime this summer anyway, when Mike's back, doing maybe grilling outside or a barbecue, something fun to come together as a church where we can be outside. Welcoming Mike back. Megan's exit is around that time too, so we can celebrate her time too at Valley. So. Yeah. So hopefully it's not that like 95-degree heat day outside, but that sounds like a lot of fun anyway to me, being outside together. Dan, you got anything?
Yeah, so just to officialize the count here for both elder board members and budget, all have passed.
All right. You sound like you've done that before, Dan, as chairman. Thank you. All right. I'm going to ask Taylor if you wouldn't mind coming up here to pray, and then we'll adjourn.
Yes, welcome Eddie and Alan to the board. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today and for what we got to talk through and discuss. We know that there are big things coming for the church, and you are at the head of that. And so I thank you for that, and I thank you for as we went through each of those line items, that we can fixate on a bigger number at the bottom, but each of those items is a specific ministry and a specific thing that we can that we are blessed with, and that we can use to bless the community. And so I thank you for this church, this congregation, and its generosity. And I pray that as we move forward into a new budget year, that we would be mindful of the weight of just the responsibility to carry out your mission through this church. And so I ask that you would impress that upon each of us, that we all play a role in the church here, and we all have things that we do, and so I pray that you would help us to see that and to be mindful of that, and to look to you. So thank you again for this congregation and for this coming budget year. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I didn't catch what you said, Martha, but I'd like to give one, just before we adjourn, a little round of applause for Eddie and Alan as they join our elder board here today. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? Can I get a second? All those for, say aye. Those against? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, Zach. Thank you.